Okay, let's dive right in. Welcome everyone to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking something absolutely crucial for all of us working in a school environment, and that is the neuroscience of classroom de-escalation. We're going to be exploring this really fascinating framework called the lookout system. My goal today? Well, it's to give you a deep biological understanding of exactly why classroom conflict happens, and, more importantly, how you can gracefully and effectively manage it. We are moving way beyond basic behavior management here. We're actually going to look under the hood at the brain itself.
But before we get into the heavy science, I want you to do a quick mental rehearsal with me. Think back to a major, heated conflict you had recently. You know the kind, maybe a moment where a student publicly defied you right in front of the whole class. Try to visualize where you were and exactly how it played out. Really put yourself back in your body right now and experience it again. Ask yourself, what actually happens to you physically in that exact moment of defiance? It's intense, right? What's really interesting is how perfectly your experience maps onto biological reality. Your own stress response during public defiance is completely natural. It's a totally overwhelming, visceral reaction. Your behavior changes. The language you use alters, usually getting a bit sharper. Your body language probably shifts into a defensive or highly assertive posture. On a scale of 1 to 10, your anger just spikes out of nowhere, and your heart rate shoots up. Now, if you feel this way as an adult, just imagine what on earth is happening inside that student. And I bet a lot of us can relate to the aftermath, right? Those lingering thoughts. I thought of things I wished I'd said. Or, it literally took over an hour for my body to relax. It's that classic frustrating drive home where you suddenly come up with the absolute perfect comeback. But why does this happen? Well, it's because these high-stakes conflicts literally hijack our higher reasoning. Logic has completely left the building in the heat of the moment. We end up distracted for over an hour afterwards just because our bodies are absolutely flooded with stress hormones, and they take real time to dissipate. So, to tackle all of this, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the anatomy of conflict and meet the lookout system before moving into the big paradigm shift of regulating before reason. Then, we are going to build out your toolkit, looking at diffusing with curiosity, scripting exit routes, and finally, handling public defiance. All right, section 1, let's get right into the anatomy of conflict. We really need to break down the invisible mechanics driving a student's sudden hostility, and the root of it all lies in human brain development. When we're born, our brainstem, which is our life support center, is fully mature. By the time we hit 10 to 13 years old, the limbic system matures, and this is the seat of our emotion and relational connection. But here's the absolute kicker. The cortex, the home of uniquely human capabilities like logical reasoning, planning ahead, and inhibiting our impulses, that doesn't fully mature until we are around 25 years old. That means the teenagers sitting right there in your classroom are operating heavily from the emotional center of their brains, and they're doing it without the fully built-in brakes of adult logical reasoning. Which brings us perfectly to part 2, meet the lookout system. So what is it exactly? Well, the lookout system is the core biological mechanism that monitors the environment of every single person in your classroom. It's made up of brain pathways that are constantly monitoring our surroundings and other people. Its one and only job is to ensure we are ready to respond to threats and danger. So think of it like an automatic biological alarm bell. It is constantly scanning. Am I safe? Is that person a threat? Are they trying to corner me? Now, let's look at how this builds when we introduce trauma into the mix, because it creates this really critical domino effect. When a child experiences early trauma, it causes major chronic activation of this alarm bell. Basically, it primes the lookout system. It gets completely oversensitized. And this leads to a state of hypervigilance, where the student interprets entirely neutral situations, like, say, you just asking them to hand over a mobile phone, as a severe life-threatening danger. The final step in this domino effect? Severe behavioral dysregulation. They aren't actually trying to be difficult. Their brain is literally screaming at them that they are under attack. Understanding that brings us to section 3, regulate before you reason. This is a massive paradigm shift. It is exactly why traditional, logic-based discipline almost always fails when a student is triggered. We really have to starkly contrast these two neurological states. On one side, we have social engagement. This is the state that drives us to behave appropriately, think clearly, learn new things, and problem solve. But on the other side, triggered by the lookout system, is the stress response. This is your classic fight, flight, or freeze. In this state, higher reasoning completely shuts down and the heart rate spikes. You literally cannot reason with a student who is in a stress response. Neurologically speaking, the door to their logical cortex is firmly locked and bolted. So what do? We have to use emotion coaching, which follows a very strict hierarchy. Step 1, right at the bottom, is regulate. You absolutely must calm the nervous system first. Step 2 is relate, connecting with them empathetically. Only then can you reach Step 3, reason, up at the top. So the absolute non-negotiable gateway here is regulation. If you try to just skip ahead and jump straight to reasoning or arguing while their lookout system is flashing bright red, you are only going to escalate the conflict. Guaranteed.
Okay, so let's look at how we actually do that in practice. Section 4, diffusing with natural curiosity.
Check out this approach. Hey, I notice you're upset about this. Let's walk for a minute and figure it out together. What is so brilliant about this little script is how it completely bypasses the power struggle. By leaning into natural curiosity and validating their feeling, rather than immediately attacking their behavior, you just drain the heat right out of the interaction. You are essentially signaling absolute safety to their hypervigilant lookout system. Confrontation never even gets a chance to start. When you're diffusing, your main goal is signaling that safety. And you do this by leaning into that natural curiosity, validating and labeling their feelings, and offering to problem solve together instead of just dictating a solution from on high. Taking a relatable approach works absolute wonders here. And crucially, you have to maintain a calm voice. Your calm tone acts like an anchor, slowly but surely bringing their spiked heart rate back down to match yours.
Now, even with the absolute best diffusion tactics, you still need Section 5, scripting your exit routes.
Because look, as educators, your own lookout system is going to get triggered too, right? You need a pre-planned plan so you don't get dragged into an unwinnable power struggle. This is one of the most powerful tools you can carry, especially when your own adrenaline starts pumping. An exit route script. Something like, I'm going to give you a moment and I'll check back in with you shortly. Delivering a line like this allows teachers and pastoral staff to gracefully step away without losing an ounce of authority. It stops you from just standing there trading blows, and it gives the student the physical space they desperately need for all that heat to dissipate. Let's bring all this theory into the ultimate high-stakes scenario, our final section, handling public defiance.
Look, it is incredibly easy to talk about emotion coaching when you're one-on-one. But we have to ask the really hard question. How on earth do you regulate an unregulated student when you're managing a busy class of 30 kids? It is incredibly difficult, no way around it. You've got an audience, the stakes are super high, and all the pressure is on you.
Well, this is where you need an on-the-spot classroom regulation toolkit. It all starts with a solid foundation of predictable routines and minimizing noise, which actually naturally lowers everyone's anxiety. But if a student does escalate, try dropping your height. Crouch beside them rather than towering over them. Give them an outlet for their physical adrenaline. Things like paper clips or blue tack for fidgeting work great. You can even subtly model box breathing yourself, inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4. These are very quiet, highly powerful ways to lower their heart rate without turning the whole incident into a massive public spectacle.
And you really need to remember your physical presence. Always stand beside a dysregulated student, never opposite them. If you stand confrontational face-to-face, or if you block an exit or corner them, their brain immediately interprets that as a physical threat, and their fight or flight response will just explode. Instead, offer them that exit route we talked about. Say, let's walk. Movement actually regulates the brainstem, and it takes the intense pressure of eye contact right out of the interaction.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a crucial reflection. Think deeply about your own triggers. What specifically pushes your buttons in the classroom? And more importantly, what is your script going to be the next time your own lookout system tries to take over during a conflict? By mentally rehearsing your exit routes and committing to regulating before you reason, you have the incredible power to completely transform the dynamic of your classroom. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating neuroscience with me, and I hope you leave today feeling fully empowered to de-escalate with absolute confidence.